has a smoke grenade, a grenade that does corrosive damage by default, so you automatically have corrosive damage off the rip. So first things first, so anyways, like I said, focusing on elemental stuff, let's go to the weapons and take a peek at what they are. I'm going to start with an honorable mention for each category first. So the first honorable mention goes for the cat, and that is not the Foundry. I don't like this. Where is it? There it is. Talisman. Talisman, because of the fact that depending on what ascensions you get, you can obviously craft this weapon to whatever you want it to be. You can be corrosive, fire, lightning, whatever works best for your build. So it's really nice being able to switch the elements like that. And frankly, if it was a better weapon overall in terms of like damage and usefulness, it would be higher. It wouldn't be an honorable mention because of how good it is with elemental synergies. But it does get the honorable mention for this one. Now, the next one, I kind of debated switching the Talisman in this one, but I think the old not the Fire Dragon, the laser gloves come in at number 3. Why the laser gloves, you might ask? Well, this is where it's important that the cat by default has the smoke grenades, which means you're going to be doing corrosive damage consistently. That, plus the fact that this does fire damage, means you're going to be causing explosions pretty often with those two things. And the fact that the laser glove does increasing damage on the same target. So for killing elites or, dark-faced bandits, bosses, anything that requires a large amount of damage, you're going to want, that's a really, really good 1-2 combo to have. And honestly, it's one of the only times I use laser gloves consistently is when I'm on the cat, just because I know I'm going to be getting those explosions from the smoke grenade as well as the damage from the laser glove. Can melt something pretty quick depending on the inscriptions you have, so that's why I like the laser gloves at number 3 for the cat. Number 2 for the cat, now this one might be interesting because this actually isn't elemental damage, doesn't have anything to do with smoke grenades, but I'll kind of explain it in a second, and I'll have to go back to the cat's tree. But number 2 is the Rainbow Arch. Now, this might come as a shock to some people, and you might be, going to the comments to angrily type about how you're displeased with my opinions. But listen to me. This thing's right click. First of all, its left click isn't bad as an AR. Automatic, does a decent amount of damage. It's fine. It's cool. Gives it a little bit more usefulness depending on the situation you're in. But the right click ability can do ridiculous damage late game. In fact, the most damage I've ever done in a shot and the most damage my roommate Bill has ever done in a shot has come from a run using the cat and Rainbow Arc. Now, why is this a thing? You might be saying. So I didn't mean to deploy, but the Ascension tree here. So if we look, there's a lot of things that can help increase the damage. There's, first of all, there's Hex Smoke, which makes you do more damage to enemies. There is Energy Blade, which is a big one. After casting your Energy Orb, the next shot does plus 500%. 500% weapon damage. Not to mention if you have something like Elemental Rage, once again, your grenades are going to be doing elemental damage. So if the enemy is under elemental effect, you're going to be doing a significant amount of increased damage as well with that. So the right click on the Rainbow Arc plus those ascensions can make that thing hit like a truck. I remember in the run where my roommate had it, he took the entire chunk of the final boss's health. Like, it has 4 phases, it took one whole phase of health down in one shot. So that's why the Rainbow Arc gets number 2. It can be really fun for trying to do a high damage build, and in fact I'd recommend it if you're trying to do a really high damage build. So that's why it's number 2. Number 1 on the cat, probably to no surprise to anybody who's watching my streams and or even my YouTube videos, because I've had a few videos with this weapon, and it's really the only time I go to play the cat anymore, the Dual Fang. For those of you who don't know, and have been living under a rock or are new to the game, the Dual Fang, the first bullet shot will do corrosive damage, the second one will do fire damage, and it'll just keep alternating back and forth. It's like an SMG that just switches back and forth each time. this thing, oh boy, obviously with the, oops, I didn't mean to exit out, with the acid dominance, pyro dominance, ascensions, the fact that it can roll with a lot of elemental inscriptions, the fact that the cat has elemental rage, and it has elemental, like, this is the cat's weapon. This is the cat's weapon. There's no doubt about it. It does well on other characters, not just the cat, but it is the cat's weapon. If you want to have a super, super fun run, play the cat, go for the elemental synergies on Ascension Tree, and grab this thing. You'll have, I'm telling you, some of the most fun runs I've had have been doing elemental builds with this bad boy. So that's why the Dual Fang gets number 1, and those are the top guns, top 3 weapons, in my opinion, for the cat. The Laser Glove, the Rainbow Arc, and the Dual Fang. Next, we have the old bear / dog. I know he's a dog, but I still think his face really makes him look like a bear. But that's aside the point. We're going to go ahead and look at his old Ascension Tree here. Now, this one we really only have to focus on one thing, and that's the explosion damage tree. All the weapons I'm putting in here are because of their ability to explode. So explosion enhancement, huge. AoE goes up, explosive damage goes up. Precise explosion damage goes up if you're only doing it to one enemy. So it's more of like a boss killer, an elite killer. Still really well, still does really well, especially if you get to that 3rd tier. Then you're going to be triggering it a lot. Sustained fire after killing an enemy or destroying an item. Up your explosive damage and weapon damage for a certain amount of time. That at tier 3 is wild. But one of the biggest ones is Mad Bomber. If you get it to just explosive damage up. But once you get it to tier 3, you have a chance to deal double damage. 30%. Almost 1/3 of the time you're going to be dealing double damage. It is absolutely absurd. So let's go ahead and look at these weapons. I doubt these are going to be a surprise to anybody. Not like the cats and maybe the birds. But let's just take a look. So the honorable mention, first and foremost, one that didn't quite make the list but still does really, really, really well on the dog, is the old Glimmering. So the Glimmering sticks into the enemy on hit and explodes after a while. For some of you who are new to the game, why is it a pistol? Anyway, for those of you who are new to the game, this weapon when it first came out was like broken, like probably the most broken weapon that's ever been in the game. It was just, if you got it right away, you didn't even need to upgrade it or find a new one. It would solo carry runs. It was crazy. But they nerfed it, so it's not nearly as useful anymore. But the fact that it still explodes means that this does really, really well on the dog. You can get a lot of cool explosive synergies with it. It's exploding every single bullet, so it's not like it's just a chance to explode. It's exploding every time. And it does really well, so that's why I have it there. The only reason it's not higher on the list or above some of these other ones is its damage output is just lower than what these other weapons can do. Now, once again, obviously on the dog, you're going to be able to dual wield as well, so dual wielding these is really good, or dual wielding any of these weapons on this list is really good. Next up, we have number 3. Now, I might get flamed for this because on the dog, this weapon has potential to be number 1 by a mile, and I actually think this weapon has the highest potential to do the most damage in the game by default. I think the most damage done in one shot was with this weapon, and it was like it was some stupid like 50 million or something like that. Anyways, the concealed ammo. So the left click is obviously just an SMG, but the right click, throw the weapon to create an explosion. Damage is based on how much ammo is in the magazine. Obviously, there's a lot of things you can do with that, like you get plus 100% mag capacity on this thing. It has a lot of really good inscriptions you can get. And with the dog, has a lot of really good ascensions you can get to help make this thing just an absolute, just one shot, almost everything with your right click. The only reason I can't put this higher is because it's solely based on getting good inscriptions, and you kind of have to get some sort of ammo synergy, because if you're just right-clicking, you're going to be going through ammo like it's nobody's business. So you want to have like bullet bank or something to make sure you constantly have ammo to go in this weapon. But man, if you do have that stuff, it is a bus. It's so good. And like I said, you're going to want to have this and experiment with it. If you've never tried to do a concealed ammo explosive run on the dog, please try it at least once. Just take a day, play the game, but just try to find a really good concealed ammo with some good scrolls, good ascensions, and just let yourself enjoy it. Just sit back and right click. That's all you have to do. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. The only reason it's not higher is because I think this weapon is more based on inscriptions and scrolls than the other weapons on the list coming ahead of it. At number 2, now the number 2 and number 1 were kind of hard to pick between, but at number 2 I have the Crimson Fire Scale. This weapon, in my opinion, is the best weapon in the game right now, but especially on the dog because of the fact that obviously the right click, multiple fireballs that explode to deal fire damage when hitting an enemy. Those are explosions. They will work with all your explosive synergies. The reason I didn't put it number 1 is because you're not triggering it every time, so you're not exploding every single shot, but it is still really good and just will melt things. Just melt them, just into oblivion, turn them into iron, steel, forge them into a new firefish to keep the firefish army going. It's just unbelievable weapon and kind of needs to brush its teeth. But that being the case, let's go ahead and go to the number 1 weapon for the dog, the Justice. I know it just got nerfed. I know, but it's still really viable. And on the Justice, dual wielding this thing, you're still getting all the explosions. When you have Mad Bomber at tier 3 or you have the AoE up, it just does so much damage and can clear out rooms and waves of enemies so fast. This weapon is so much fun. I'd say between the cat and dual fang and the dog Justice explosive runs, those are tied for my 2 favorite runs to try to do. Crazy explosive runs using the Justice and crazy elemental runs using the dual fang. It beats doing like cleave or leap runs on the bird. Those 2 things are just so exciting, and they can carry you through a lot of different runs. I want to say one of the first times I beat Nightmare was doing an explosive run with the Justice, and my fastest speed run, which was 5th in the world, it's not anymore, was with dual wield Justice and explosive synergy. So it's very good and something you're going to want to try out if you haven't, and if you have, do it again because that's how much fun it is to do.
Slow motion rewind. Our hearts are wide open. We're sliding through time in favorite glimpses. Low frequency highs. We're next to the speakers under open sky. You're radiant in your cool